Welcome back to the Haunted Beard, everybody. Thanks for joining me. So I've spent the last 2 days dwelling on, reflecting on, and thinking about Longlegs. And like I said in my review, I wanted to follow it up with a spoiler-filled review, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to be getting into my thoughts here, talking about a handful of different scenes, talking about the ending and my interpretation of stuff. So you have been warned. Let's get into it. So I wanted to start off by talking about what I think are some of just the highlight scenes, some of my favorite scenes in the film. And I think if I had to pick one, like my most favorite, it would probably be the interrogation scene between, obviously, Detective Harker and Longlegs. And man, what a fantastic scene. And it's kind of amazing that, like, you know, being this sort of serial killer murder mystery, this is really the only scene where Micah Monroe and Nicolas Cage share screen time. Man, what an incredible impact this scene leaves. We really get to see Cage's character on full display. And man, he's just captivating. I can't really say enough good things about his performance here. And I was reading one of the comments on my original review, and they were saying that they found some humor in it. It actually made them laugh a little bit. And I'll be honest, while I'll say I didn't laugh, there were a couple moments from Nicolas Cage that really made me smile and kind of was like, yeah, that's the Nicolas Cage we all know and love. Is unrecognizable as he is, you can, you know, there is still a little bit of that Nicolas Cage presence that comes through that is unmistakable for sure. But yeah, the interrogation scene is just phenomenal because, again, you really just get to, it's all about Cage, and you really just get to see his performance, you know, full out and unhinged, and it's fantastic. And then the shock factor with him, you know, smashing his head against the desk and killing himself right in front of her. Didn't see it coming, obviously, but just a great scene. A couple other scenes. I mean, the whole movie I really enjoyed, but a couple other major scenes that really stood out to me. I like the scene earlier on in the film when Harker gets dropped off at her house. And I love how silent this sequence is. It's at night, and it's just so quiet. She lives out in the woods, almost in like this like little log cabin style house. And I love the way that this scene is shot and lit, and just how quiet it is. I love just kind of the slow build in this scene. You know, at first she looks out the window and sees the little dark silhouette, and then she hears the banging on the door and goes out. And then you see Cage behind her, you know, through the window of the house. And I like how this scene is handled because, you know, Cage essentially like gets in and out of her house like kind of in like a supernatural way, to where it's like he kind of just appears and is in and out and disappears, and you're like, what in the world just happened? And so that's definitely kind of an indicator that we're kind of into some supernatural territory here, which I'll talk about a little bit further on. And then the third scene I wanted to talk about is when Harker and like the lead police chief guy, they go to the barn and they find the doll under the floorboards. And just another great scene in terms of atmosphere. Love, again, the lighting and kind of the silhouettes with just sort of the orangey glow of the flashlights. Just great stuff. I can't compliment the visuals enough in this. I was totally eating it all up. I loved the visuals. They're just fantastic. But, you know, just the creepiness of them pulling up the wooden planks to this, you know, like lifelike child doll underneath the floorboards, because like you have no idea what to expect. And then you see that and you're like, what in the world is this? And then I love kind of the jarring little jump cut where it goes from that to then the doll is on the autopsy table. And then you like really get a good picture of it and you're like, this is whacked out. What in the world is going on? Just great stuff all around. Now, in my previous review for this movie, I complimented the atmosphere of this like up to high heaven. It's just fantastic. The whole vibe and the feel of this movie, I was so happy. Like this is just horror movie goodness, man. Everything this movie was sending me in terms of the feelings and the vibes of it, I was like, this is just wonderful. I was loving it. And I want to speak though, because there are a couple jump scares in this movie that I actually found to be quite effective. And the first one happens in the opening scene where you see, Nicolas Cage only from like the mouth down, and then he drops down and you get a real quick glimpse of his face, and then there's kind of that little blast of music. And then the other one that happened later on in the movie is where Harker is kind of realizing she's got these sort of repressed memories. She goes back to her house, opens up the trunk, and starts digging through the photos. And that's when the movie starts kind of throwing some of the just kind of the weird visuals, flashes of the snakes and stuff like that. And also too, the sound design in this movie as well is just fantastic. But that there was a jump scare right in that scene where she sees the photo of him. That one got me. And I feel like what makes these couple jump scares so effective, because typically jump scares for me are not very, effective whatsoever. But I think what made these so effective is because of how good the atmosphere is of the rest of the film. Because Oz Perkins has got, at least me anyway, he had me sort of so on edge that any sort of, jolt or jarring thing really just, it got me. And so because the atmosphere of the movie is so effective and so unsettling and you're so on the edge of your seat, I think it really lent to the jump scares being so effective. So Perkins, good job. You made me jump twice in your movie. So 2 thumbs up for you. Now, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, I was going to talk about some of the supernatural stuff in the movie because there is clearly a supernatural element to the film, and I quite enjoyed it, and I liked how Perkins, I guess, sort of executed that concept and that idea, and how he kind of showed the supernatural element. But to me, what I think he was kind of getting at in one of the main points he was trying to make with the movie is that there is an evil that exists in the world that goes beyond just natural explanation. And I think the way that the murders were happening kind of lends towards that, because you've got these just seemingly average, everyday, happy-go-lucky families, married husband, wife with kids, just, seem like everything's good. And then all of a sudden one day somebody snaps and just, the husband snaps and murders his whole family kind of thing, which is, stuff we've obviously seen in real life sort of thing. And then outside of just the cryptic letters that they're getting, so that's why they know somebody else is involved. But other than that, there is no, explanation. There's no DNA, there's no physical evidence or anything like that. And so you're just kind of left going like, what in the world? You're looking for an explanation, a why of what could possibly explain this type of action and this type of evil. And I think what Perkins is saying is that there is some evil that exists that is beyond the natural, that there is really only a sort of supernatural, demonic type of explanation to it. And so I really like that he kind of implemented that element into the film. I thought it was really well done. And then to kind of expand on that a little bit, and this sort of adds a little bit more to the lifelike child dolls that are used. Man, I don't know if it was Perkins' idea or whoever's idea it was to use those dolls as sort of the conduit for the devil himself. Dude, man, that person should be commended, because that is one of the most just twisted, messed up things. First of all, just the look of the dolls is creepy enough, but like the fact that they're using this kind of innocent child's toy as a conduit for the devil himself to bring evil into the house, man, yeah, just crazy stuff. But I really like just that creative type of choice. We've seen movies about like, killer dolls and possessed dolls and stuff like this, but this kind of puts a pretty unique sort of twist on it, and I dug it. I thought it was pretty good stuff. And then the last little thing I'll say about this is that maybe I'm reading into this a little too much, but the thought kind of hit my mind. Obviously, we find out in the end that Harker's mom has been involved and stuff like that. And I thought it was interesting, though, that, they had to figure out how did somebody get the dolls in the house kind of thing. And it's the mom, and that she dresses up like this nun or, somebody who works for the church. And that's the person that they felt comfortable, opening the door and letting into their house kind of thing. Which is also kind of an interesting choice in terms of kind of what it says. And there's certainly some kind of, religious horror elements into this movie. And just about, how sometimes religion can obviously be used for the exact opposite of what it's supposed to be used for. Sometimes religion can obviously get, just straight up evil. But I don't know, it's kind of like the wolf in sheep's clothing kind of thing. Like, oh, here's this just nice, God-fearing woman. Sure, she can come into the house, and it's like, well, you have no idea what kind of hell you just unleashed upon yourself for that. But yeah, just kind of another interesting choice that I thought was pretty well done. All right, so with as much praise as I've heaped upon this thing, I do have a couple issues with it as I've been able to reflect on it over the last couple days. And maybe a rewatch will kind of fix these, but here's kind of where my mind's at right now. So I have a couple issues and questions that I'm not really sure about. So first of all, we find out later on that there's kind of the pattern to the birthdays, and that's how Longlegs is kind of, choosing victims and things like that. And I'll give my sister credit for bringing this up, because we were on the way home from the theater and she mentioned this. And so we find out earlier on that the police chief's daughter's birthday, I think, is on the 13th, right? And then, of course, they discover that there's the connection with the birthdays and the pattern with the birthdays. And so she was like, it just seems that they should have been able to put two and two together. That, hey, he's killing people on these days and my daughter's birthday is on this day. It seems like they should have been able to kind of figure that out and notice that. But that's a pretty minor complaint. One of my other ones, and this is really just a question, is that, after Longlegs leaves the letter, when he goes into Harker's house at that scene that I talked about, and he leaves her the letter, why does she not mention it to anybody? Why does she not tell the police chief, like, hey, he was in my house. Hey, he left me this letter. I'm not really sure why she never said anything about it. So that just kind of seemed like an odd choice in her character. And so, I don't know, if you have any thoughts as to why you don't think she said anything, let me know down below. I would be interested in hearing your reasoning as to why, but that kind of bothered me. I didn't really understand why she wouldn't have said anything. And then my last issue has to do with a little bit of the ending. And I mentioned in my previous video, it's not really what happens. It's more just like kind of how it happens and how the information is presented to us. But obviously, we get to the point where Harker figures out that it's her mom who, is involved with this. And then there's that scene where, she shoots the doll and the black smoke, and that sort of triggers this kind of, I don't know, response, and it causes Harker to pass out. And then we get this scene where we find out exactly what happened, that her mom made a deal because, the devil himself wanted Harker, but the mom made a deal to stay away from her, and in turn, she would help him carry out the murders kind of thing. And while all that's fine, I just thought the way that information was communicated it's kind of just like this exposition dump, right? And so it just feels, I don't want to say lazy, but it just kind of a little too easy and convenient to be like, you kind of get to the end, the climactic part in the movie, and then it's just like, all right, she passes out, and here's the explanation for everything. So I don't have an issue with the explanation. I just wish it could have been, I guess, presented in a different way. So that's really my only other issue. I really like how the film ends and the note that it ends on. To me, it kind of ends on this note of impending doom. That, now that Harker's mom is dead and Longlegs is dead, the deal is up, and we know that the devil initially wanted Harker, and now there's no sort of buffer. The deal is up, and so to me, it really ends on a dark note that Harker is basically doomed, and the devil is going to, I don't know, possess her or something. Basically, I think she's going to be now the next sort of conduit to start delivering these dolls and just continue the supernatural demonic force of evil in the world. So yeah, pretty dark, messed up ending, but I think it fits within the tone of the film. So I really liked how Perkins decided to end the film. So yeah, anyways, those are a little more of my expanded thoughts on Longlegs. I'm still going to stand by my score that I gave in my original review. I think an 8.5 out of 10 for me is right about where I'm at. I cannot wait to watch this thing again. Man, I'm just very much anticipating watching it all over again. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Hit me up down below. Let me know some of your thoughts. What, what was your favorite scene? How did you interpret the ending and everything? And yeah, would love to hear from you. So that's all I got. Thank you so much for watching. Greatly appreciate it. If you got anything out of this video, go ahead and do me a favor and do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.